this is Becky. Welcome back to my channel. This episode, I thought I'd talk a little bit more about motherhood. And in an ideal world, it's the dream for a young girl. And I know that our society is rapidly changing beyond what some of us are used to and comfortable with. But as we know, the only thing to fear is fear itself. And that we also know that the only constant is change. So we have to learn to roll with the punches, literally, figuratively, spiritually, financially. I should have had a little bum there, but that's okay. Right now, you guys are getting me at my one-man show, who is just starting out as an independent entrepreneur who is an empty nester trying to figure out how to make the business world my new nest. And it takes time and it's progress, which also reminds me, I am going to be starting a Star Seed launch program. And what that entails is I have an entire library. It's not just a course. I have a library of step-by-step instructions and tutorials and everything I can do to help a starseed be able to launch their own business. So right now I am always trying to be the adventurer that I am, and I always like to lead the way. I feel like I have the machete in the jungle out in the wild, and I'm always kind of paving the path for those that are behind me. And being an OG starseed who's been around the block a few times, I'm going to dip my toe into this whole entrepreneurial, online, reaching out to the whole world kind of thing. So instead of just helping my fellow man in my community, let's go ahead and take this global, right? Motherhood. It's a time where we need to be raising children much more intentionally in order to restore balance and harmony to the earth. And motherhood is a sacred blessing and an immense responsibility. Now, God does have a cosmic blueprint. So as much as people want to say you get to co-create and do it however you want and blah, 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 that's true to a point. However, if you look biblically and I don't want to say religiously, but if you look into the structure that God's design is, there is a blueprint. And the reason for it is that parenting is critical to raising healthy children of God. And a woman should have to wait to have a child, and I know people are going to disagree with me, but it's really important, and I've experienced it, I've witnessed it, I've lived it, I've studied it, okay? You really do need to wait to have a child until you are balanced in both your feminine and your masculine energies. Now, there's some people that need catching up here. Every human, every vessel has both feminine and masculine energies. Most of the time they are out of whack, they are out of balance. And so that can lead to people, I don't want to say ending up in the LGBTQ plus, because that makes it sound like some group that you don't want to be in. Believe me, I've tipped my toe into that pool before, and it just wasn't for me. So to each his own. However, I do believe that God does not approve of that lifestyle. However, we all have free will to live how we want, so I'm not judging that lifestyle. However, I am saying that God does have a blueprint for when you're ready to have children. In order to have them have the healthiest type of environment, to have the best outcome at launching into being an independent, self-sufficient, cosmic being in this playground that we call the earth. Some of us still call it a war zone, but we're learning. Okay, so we have to make sure that the female has a balanced feminine, masculine energies. Okay. Then we have to make sure that she has developed a close personal relationship with God. And that doesn't just mean going to church, ladies. It doesn't mean just reading the Bible. And it doesn't mean pretending to be a good girl and then doing the sneaky, stuff behind the scenes, because God sees everything. So whatever is done in the dark comes to the light, and you just own it and you fess up and you say, Lord, I'm sorry. Change your behavior. Moving forward. All right. Because you're always trying to evolve to be better than you used to be. So believe me, there's going to be people behind you that are going to be saying all kinds of things of the person that you used to be. But you're not that person anymore. right? So let them think what they're going to think. They just don't know you, and you just move forward. Okay, so they have to have a close personal relationship with God. That's through prayer, meditation, and I'm telling you, daily. And sometimes for me, it's hourly, right? Depending on the situation. Then you need to make sure that as a woman who wants to be a mother, that you have established a healthy lifestyle, both in your mind, your body, and your spirit. Now, I was not the best at this because I grew up in a very traumatized, dysfunctional family unit. So I already had significant issues in weight gain and eating disorders and other things, right? So I already came to that. And then I married my high school sweetheart because religion was like, that was a girl was supposed to get married. And that's what her whole life should be around, nurturing her husband and taking care of the kids in the house. That was not how my story turned out, and there's been lots of plot twists. That you can schedule a free consultation at homens.consulting@gmail.com, so then I can share more of my situations, past version selves, as blueprints for you, and see if any of those blueprints kind of match up, mirror up with what you're going through, because believe me, I've got a lot of them. All right, and now we've got the woman also wants to make sure that she's letting God lead her to her divine counterpart while working on her godly ordained mission. Okay. My family was very religious, and so they found out that I had lost my virginity. Oh my gosh, outside of wedlock. Oh my gosh, how dare we have an almost 18-year-old. It was a week before my 18th birthday. Oh, and how dare she do that? So I was rushed into a committed engagement, and then ended up pregnant, and our baby was 3 months old when we got married. So was it the wedding of my dreams? No, it was not. But according to the families, was it biblically correct? Sure, it was. But I was in no way, shape, or form ready for that kind of situation, and my family set me up for failure, unfortunately, and I can't blame them. That's just the way it was. Their ancestors did the best they could. My ancestors did the best they could, and I did the best I could, and my kids will do the best they can, right? So being said, we want to make sure that as a woman that you are really tapped into God, and not just going with religious beliefs of your family members that have brainwashed you to believe certain things. And again, I am not trying to sway anybody from the traditional path. I am just saying that path almost killed me. And I kid you not, I can laugh about it now. And we can share stories when we talk about your situation, so we can see how we can get you in a better situation for yourself. Okay. Now, I then had trouble after I finally decided, oh my goodness, my husband really is going to kill me, and my children. And so I had a therapist who said, you right now are deciding if you want to be a battered wife, that's up to you. But you are creating the blueprint for your children on what a healthy relationship should look like. So looking at you and your then husband, would you want your daughters to put up with what you're putting up with? And would you want your son to be doing what your partner is doing? That was a huge, huge eye-opener. And so when my son was 1, my daughter were 3 and 6, I made that tough decision to go against my family, go against my religion, go against society beliefs in my community, and started to expand outside of what I had been programmed to believe. And it's through a lot of trial and error in other people's paths as well that I can give you the wisdom on how to help you decide who your divine counterpart really is. Because there are a lot of spiritually gifted people in this world who are using their gifts for evil and not for good, but they could be smiling in your face in 1 minute, and at the same time they can be, doing something totally evil behind the scenes and in the unseen realm, that you have to always watch your back. So, and I hate to say it that way, but that's why I say, yes, it's a game energetically and vibrationally, but it is a spiritual war. So you really do have to wield both an internal warrior as well as the internal peacekeeper. And you have to be able to balance those. And that can be a very difficult fine tuning, and something that I've experienced and can help you with as well. So, as a woman who wants to be a mother, we want to, let's see here, where I lost my track. Oh, I was going to say, I can be a big help in helping you determine what is best for you by being basically a divine sounding board to concerns that you'd like to process with someone confidentially outside of your family and social circle, because we know how that can be in a beehive. You tell one person and it's like Chinese telephone, and next thing you know, the story is totally different from how it even started. So it's nice to have a confidant who is detached and removed from the situation, who can give you impartial judgment and criticism and like critiques that you're actually wanting. I'm not trying to push anything on you. And I will tell you that too. I will say this was how I would do it. I'm not saying it's how you should do it. What works for me may not work for you. I'm just giving you a blueprint based on my history, my knowledge, my Akashic records. This is the way I would handle it. And then you could take that advice, or you could throw it out the window. You could let it go one ear out the other. You could write it down. You could scribe it. You could actually do it. And then let me know how it goes, because that's the other thing. I want to hear the follow-up. I want to know, did it make things better? And if not, come back and I will help you figure out, okay, that didn't work, then let's see what we can do. Did it at least help? You know, and because we're always looking for progress and not perfect, okay? And we don't want to like beat these men up. However, we're not settling, ladies. We're not settling. So I'm going to be picky for you. If you've got a broken picker, in your brain of like scanning of who's attractive, and you know that it's dysfunctional or it's a little off, you got a history where you look back and you're like, man, I think I need some help just with some discernment, sharpen my skills, then I'm the one that you're going to want to talk to. Okay. Let's see. Once you've determined that you have found your spiritual battle buddy that you want to get married to, you're going to remember this person that you're picking, you're getting married to, that you are deciding that this person is who you're going to army crawl through the mud under barbed wire with. You're going to expect that person to be able to lift you up that wall, and you're going to be able to do up the life right with that person. So you really want to make sure that you know what you're signing up for when you sign on the dotted line for a marriage certificate, the same way that you want to know what you're getting into when you are signing up to join the army. Because you do become a unit that has to learn to flow and function together. And if you're used to flowing in dysfunction, or if you're used to only flowing at your own free will, then there is going to be disruption to lives that needs to kind of, get figured out. So once you think that you've figured out who that spiritual battle buddy is that you want to marry, okay, let's see, what was I going to say? Oh, I put on here as a little sidetrack because, with my lovely brain and how it works. I was going to say is that there's a lot of times where I feel like life for me has been like walking in Alice in Wonderland story, or the looking through the looking glass stories, right? A lot of times we're looking into people's lives and they have a story that's been going on for them, and we're just entering in on a chapter within their story. And we don't know what's happened in the previous chapters. It's like jumping into a mini-series in the middle of the mini-series, but you don't have the context clues to be able to understand why the character is acting the way that they're acting. So we don't come in and assume that we know based on our past experience what's going on. We have to become more inquisitive. And so a lot of times I will, get to meet people. And like I said, I have a lot of people, very different backgrounds. And so sometimes I'll be like, oh, in my head, I don't say this out loud, although sometimes I might if the person's cool enough and I know that they'll laugh about it. I'll be like, oh, you remind me of the hookah token caterpillar in Alice in Wonderland, or hey, you remind me of the Mad Hatter, like, you know, and usually we can kind of laugh about it. Some days I'm like the white rabbit that's, you know, I'm late for a very important date. No time to say hello, goodbye, I'm late. Anyway, life can be very funny. And when you're working with lots of different people, you get to see snippets of lots of different stories. And I like to also then kind of overlay that with biblical. And so a lot of my life adventures, as I will call them, my chapters in my book, have had underlying biblical themes. So I've had my Job trials. I've risen to the top like Joseph, you know, and I can just think of all the different walked like Mary and loved like Jesus, right? So you could just go through each of the stories, and if you haven't and you want to know more about them, again, I can help introduce you to that as well. So go ahead and like, subscribe, and share this video so we can get the message out to more people and get the content out there, because I'm creating a community here online for my tribe. And while we're on our paths, right, we have to cultivate a protective, honest, and supportive soul family that will hopefully include your karmic family members, which are usually the blood relatives. Those are the ones that you've learned your life lessons, that's created the avatar that you are at this stage right now in the present. And you have to honor, or not, but I choose to honor every person that I've ever interacted, because they have helped me become who I am. They've helped shaped me into who I am, right? So even if I can retell a story and it sounds like I am talking negatively about that person, I will explain that even though that situation was negative, I hold no negativity towards that individual, because that's how we learn our spiritual lessons, is through the vessel. So in some situations, I'm a hero and an angel, and I'm just so wonderful. And in other stories, I'm evil and I'm mean and I'm a wicked warden, and that my aides, when I was teaching, I had a student who told me that my aides, the women that were helping me, were my minions. So that way I could sit in my classroom, and then my minions would tell me when kids were misbehaving, and then I'd pull them in and I'd be the wicked warden on them, and I'd send them back to class. And it's kind of funny that, you know, it all depends on when you catch me in your storyline. You may hate me today, but a week from now, I'm going to be your best friend. And I'm the type of person where I create a container, a community, a safety net, so that way we can be emotionally vulnerable and say, you know what, I fucking hate you right now. Oops, sorry. Probably gonna have to bleep that. Anyway, I don't know how to pause. Anyway, so I'm learning. But you can then turn around and come back, pray to God, say, I am so sorry, Lord. I know that that was profanity. I know that that was anger in my heart. I know that I shouldn't have done that, and I apologize. You put yourself in meditation, do a workout, do something to somatically get those feelings processed out of the body so you don't bleed onto other people, because your feelings are your feelings. You can't blame anybody else for the way that you feel. You can journal. Hey, why did I just say the F-bomb? Oops. Why was I so mad in that moment that I said that? Like, that's not really what I meant. So I need to be more careful about the words that I'm using, because I want to mean what I say and say what I mean, and not leave a gray area for confusion when it comes to communication. And we always want to be respectful with the words, which is why, yes, the F word is not against God and against the law, but it's also just not socially, I don't know, it's just not socially acceptable for especially women to go around saying those kind of things. But I do believe that God does not like profanity, and believe me, you're gonna have people be like, oh, I heard her cuss like a sailor. I'm not gonna lie, I have had my moments. But I choose to be the peaceful, Zen warrior in the garden at this stage of life, okay? So, while we're both on our paths, right, what we're doing is we're learning lessons from everybody that we come into contact with. We're all teachers, we're all students. And we're all here to retrieve different aspects of our soul and who we are, and learning to explore the universe more through this vessel. And it's a journey, and we're supposed to be integrating both our shadow self and our light body. And some people can get caught up too far in their shadow self, and some people can get caught up too far in their light body self. And we have to learn how to fluctuate, because as life changes, as situations change, then our flow state is going to change. And like I said, those light body emotions, those darker body emotions, none of them are wrong, but it is like a lava lamp that's kind of going on inside. And if we're not careful, you know, it can burn somebody, you know, catch on fire if we're not like too careful. And we gotta, you know, make sure that the emotions don't cause us to self-sabotage towards our goals. All right. So once you have, you know, your divine counterpart, both parties of the divine couple need to agree on assigned gender roles and how they want to evolve over time as individuals. And I'm not saying you have to stick to that plan, but just have an agreement. You have to be on the same page when you're talking about, you know, wanting to get married and wanting to have children in a godly way, in a more traditional type of sense. Because in the traditional sense, the husband is supposed to worry about the finances, taking care of the home, providing for the woman so she doesn't have to work. So all of her time, and he puts all of his time and attention onto her, right? Keeping her mentally well, happy, peace, stability, protection of the home that they're creating, the life they're creating. And then it's her job to be the spiritual warrior between the two, to be able to come in with ideas and to then nurture those plans, nurture her husband, speak life into what he's doing, give him the encouragement and the upliftment. She is to be, you know, the helpmate to her husband, and is willing to submit to his leadership. And that is where a lot of women are burned repeatedly due to poor previous partners not being able to lead. And unfortunately, then the new person gets, you know, beaten up emotionally because of what past people have done. So we want to make sure that we're healing our own wounds, so that way we're not ruining gifts that God is giving before we even know that it's a gift. Okay, so, and the gender roles thing. I don't care if it's the man that's staying home taking care of the babies and the woman's out working, and or if it's the woman staying home, and that doesn't matter to me. All what I'm saying is in that home, what you create is going to be the blueprint for that starseed. And so God, I do believe, wants it to be the more traditional, but it needs to be in a healthier way because of the toxicities and the spiritual beings that have come down and kind of infiltrated different vessels. It makes it really hard, and that's where we say Satan's really attacking the homes and the couples and families as well as individuals. So when it comes to gender roles, I don't mean, you know, the way that they did it in the 1950s. I'm saying whatever works for you and your partner, whatever genders you are, just know that you are imprinting the code. And I personally do believe that the children that have the most balanced mental wellness and the best mental health, there we go, are the ones that have a male, traditional alpha male type father who leads, and that the female is more traditional, submissive to that male, but they have done it in a way that God has blessed it. And we could talk more about what I've witnessed and experienced and have helped people through over the last 3+ decades on what I've seen currently and what's, because let's be honest, the past, the present, the future all happening together, so it kind of gets a little jumbled at times, especially when I'm a time traveler and I can jump timelines, so I get to see people at different levels of stuckness, and so sometimes I get surprised at the mentalities that are still out there. They'll be like, oh wow, I thought we got past that as a society, and I'm like, oh, they're still catching up. Okay. So once you are decided that you are going to be a divine couple, before you decide to get married, you want to start your own family. You also need to be aware of, it really does take a whole village to raise a child properly. And people, you have to make sure that you weed your garden in order for the butterflies to be there. So that means that if you're going to have a child there, make sure that that environment is a healthy environment for the child. Let's see. Oh, and that's what I was going to say. That's where I can also come in and kind of help be a blessing to you, in that if you need help in discernment on who should be around your children, I can help you figure that out, because I had to put very strict boundaries between my children and my parents and other family members that were not stable and well enough in their mental wellness to be able to interact properly with my children. And that's a very tough position to be in, when you feel like you're choosing one family member over another family member, especially if it's your child. And it causes all kinds of tension and conflict when other people in the family don't have all the facts and information, and causes all kinds of issues within the family that we can address and I can help you with. Children really do require a lot of time, energy, and resources, which becomes almost impossible for single mothers to provide on their own. And the women in my family have usually kind of had to protect the children even from the men in the family. So it creates a different type of an environment for children to be raised in than someone who was born and raised into a religious family where everybody was all, ascended and enlightened and consciously evolved, and they got all these blessings that they grew up with. Well, that's a very different adult that you're going to have as your, final product than someone in a different environment. So I come in and I kind of, every human is like a glorified plant. And I come in and I say, okay, are you giving this plant the same care and nutrients as all the other plants in the house, or are you actually giving this plant the care and nutrients that it needs to not only survive but to then thrive? And sometimes it might be that they're not getting enough sunlight, or they're getting too much sunlight, right? So I can help you figure out some of that stuff. All right. So children, I said, require a lot of time and money. And like I said, as a single mom, I was brought to my knees many, many, many times. And if it weren't for the grace of strangers, there were times where me and my kids ended up homeless twice because of other people's poor choices. And then of course I have to take full responsibility that I, continued to engage in conversations with family members that I shouldn't have. So I have to take accountability as well. So I take my own medicine. All right, so you don't need to humble me, all right? All right, children require a lot of time, energy, and resources, which becomes almost impossible for the single mother to provide on their own. So the systems in the U.S. put in place to help people in need are overpopulated, underfunded, and short-staffed. But we're blessed to have broken systems because other countries don't even have that, for goodness sakes. I mean, really, we're very blessed that we even have the broken systems that we have here. So I'm just so grateful that you're here and that you want to know more about motherhood, and we can talk. And if you have different ideas, I would love to hear them, because I'm always looking for opportunities to learn and grow and meet new versions of really cool people that are out in the world, and hear how your relationships might be different than the stories that I've experienced over the last 30 years. And like I said, I'm here to help you help yourself. And I look forward to talking with you in my next video. Have a great day.